I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and if you want a Windows Phone device on Verizon, you've got two different options. One is the HTC Windows Phone 8X. It's available now for $199. It packs a beautiful build quality, 4G LTE, and more. And then you have the Nokia Lumia 822. It's a little bit more of a budget device on Verizon at $49.99, but it's packing a lot of the same specs as the HTC device, namely a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 processor, a 1,800 milliamp hour battery, and 4G LTE. Which one's going to win? We'll find out in the dogfight. But first, special thanks to our partners at Best Buy because they give us devices just like this for use in our One Paul Bandit giveaway game, which we give to you on the site at instantwin.phonedog.com. When you go into Best Buy Mobile, you'll walk out working with either of these devices. They'll help you get your settings out ready to go. You'll be moving and shaking, and you'll walk out the door working thanks to Best Buy Mobile. Let's take a look. 8X, Lumia 822. Which one's going to win? We'll find out starting right now. If Android and iOS don't tickle your fancy, there are some great Windows alternatives out there on the market. Two of those are on Verizon, and they're right in front of the camera right now. One is the HTC Windows Phone 8X, available on Verizon Wireless right now for $199, and it packs some great specs that even the AT&T and T-Mobile version of this device doesn't pack. For example, this has a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 CPU, run-of-the-mill there, nothing new between the models. It also has a 4.3-inch display, an LCD HD display at that, 720p on this device, 8 megapixel camera with 1080p HD video recording. It's got a non-removable battery that's 1,800 milliamp hours, a front-facing camera, 4G LTE capabilities, and Windows Phone 8. Where this one differs from the AT&T and T-Mobile versions, it packs wireless charging. So if you have a wireless charging pad that's based on the Qi standard, for example, the Nokia Lumia 920 charging pad, all you have to do is pop it down on that charger, and you can take advantage of some wireless charging goodness over on the 8X. That is exclusive to Verizon's version of the 8X, and it's available only on that carrier. Then you have the Lumia 822 over here, and while this device looks different on Verizon, as you can see here, the design is a little bit different versus other Lumia devices on the market. It's basically the same device as the Lumia 810 on T-Mobile and the Lumia 820 on AT&T. It's packing a 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 CPU. It also has a 1,800 milliamp hour battery, although the Nokia version is removable. It has 4G LTE connectivity, a 4.3-inch display over on this, although it is a non-HD display, 480 by 800 pixels, and they both, like I said, have 4G LTE connectivity on Verizon Wireless. But Verizon's finally getting back into the game with the Windows business, finally getting some Windows Phone 8 devices. Partnership with Microsoft is alive yet again. Now, out of the gate, these are very similar across the board. You see a couple of different things. DataSense on both devices, which DataSense was announced at the Microsoft press conference back in October when they re-released Windows Phone 8 to the public. DataSense is exclusive to Verizon, and what it does on both of these devices, go to DataSense here and DataSense here, you basically get the ability to manage your data in a better way. So let's say you have 5 gigabytes on this device and 3 gigabytes over here, and you can customize that number based on your personal data plan. But let's say you have that amount of data on both devices. It'll tell you when your limit resets and what's using the most data. So I've used, in this case over here, 13 megabytes. I've used 18 megabytes over the Lumia 822, and it shows that, people or app downloads have used the most data. Internet Explorer, app downloads over here. Over here, Store, Outlook, System. It shows me what uses data, and thanks to data usage via DataSense, you can kind of customize it, and you can really see, A, where you're using a lot of data, and B, how you can contribute to cutting back on that data, and DataSense can help you manage that. It's a great application. It's great for people that are first-time smartphone buyers. I think a lot of people will really enjoy this, and it's an exclusive to Verizon. Then we can scroll down through here, as you can see. We'll go to the HTC stuff. HTC is what's on here. It's HTC Hub, basically. It's been rebranded as HTC. It's an application that brings kind of an Android look and feel to the Windows Phone devices. And you can see from the HTC application, you can access weather, you can access stock, news, and more just by clicking through the various applications. There's another really cool thing in the settings, which I'll show you in just a second. Over here, you get some great Nokia value-added applications. In addition to ESPN, you get the typical Microsoft stuff, but then you get Nokia City Lens, Nokia Drive, Nokia Maps, and Nokia Music, all of which are free, all of which are great value adds for the Nokia devices. Basically, and I say this in all the Nokia reviews and dogfights, Nokia is doubling down on Windows Phone 8. They're putting their entire smartphone strategy behind Windows Phone 8, and as a result, they want it to be successful, rightfully so. So they're releasing some great value-added applications that are really making people consider, hey, why Nokia versus HTC or versus Samsung in the Windows Phone race, and on a greater level on the Android and iOS race. So you've got the Nokia applications there. Microsoft, as you can see down here, Microsoft Office and OneNote. You got Univision, and then you got Wallet as well. And then down here, excuse me, you got NFL Mobile, you got VZ Navigator, and you got Yelp, which is an application I installed. VZ Navigator is an additional fee, and there comes some great value-added applications over here as well. They just come in Microsoft, the Windows Phone 8 operating system within itself, which we'll talk about in just a second. First of all, let's take a look at the web browser on both of these devices. Both have 4.3-inch displays, and the interesting thing with Windows Phone 8, there's not a whole lot of difference between the platforms. It's not like you're getting any special things on HTC that you're not on Nokia or vice versa. You can compare two Android devices that are running Jelly Bean, a Samsung and an HTC, for example, and they look completely different. They're entirely different devices that operate completely differently, whereas over here, very similar all across the board, save for some of those applications which I just pointed out. So very similar all across the board, but loading up Phone Dog on both of these devices, we'll go back, and actually this one's already on the home page, so I'll go here and we'll go to Phone Dog, not P. Joan Dog, Phone Dog. There we go. Pinch to zoom, incredibly responsive. The 1.5 gigahertz dual-core Snapdragon S4 CPU finally up to the times, finally catching up with what's popular in the industry right now, although we're kind of shifting to quad-core devices. Finally getting dual-core capabilities and 1080p camcorder capabilities on both of these devices as well. And I can swipe away to remove the notifications, but again, pinch to zoom responsive on both of these devices, and to access tabs on either one, it's an easy fix. You just come down here, shift this one over into portrait mode, and come down here and access tabs, and you can see a bunch of different web pages at once, which is really, really nice. Now we'll go to messaging as well. Again, 4.3-inch display. Both of these are going to be relatively easy to type on for a lot of people. 4.3 inches is a nice sweet spot, although we're seeing some huge devices now, 5.5 inches, 4 inches, 4.7, all kinds of different areas in the spectrum. 4.3 I think will be great for a lot of people, but even though before we get into that, I'll show you, because these are both 4.3-inch display devices, but they look entirely different. You can see the Lumia 822 is a little bit of a meatier, chunkier device with your volume rocker, power button, and camera shortcut button over on the right side. Your volume rocker, excuse me, your 3.5mm headphone jack up top, micro USB charging port at the bottom, and your battery door back here in the back with that 1,800 milliamp hour removable battery, and then of course the camera on the back as well. Then over here, beautiful build quality over on the HTC, really fits well in the hand, has a nice feel to it. This comes in California blue, that you can get red as well on Verizon Wireless. 8 megapixel camera over here, micro SIM card slot, volume rocker, camera shortcut button, power buttons up at the top on this device, along with a 3.5mm headphone jack, and then down at the bottom you've got your micro USB charging port. Beautiful design here. Buttons on the bottom are the same on both devices. You get back, home, and then Bing on both of these units, and then of course by hitting the back button you have the ability to multitask, or at least Microsoft's version of multitasking on both of these devices. So we'll go back home and take a look at messaging on both units, and we'll come in here. Amber Alert was one that I got the other day. We'll go ahead and pop back out here, and we're going to go ahead and add a new message like we're typing something. 4.3-inch display. Microsoft's keyboard is standard across the board. You can't add additional keyboards. That said, Microsoft's is pretty functional and easy to use. So we'll start with the 8X and say, Fox is happy that the day is almost done, because Quick Brown Fox is tired and maybe he needs to go to bed. So you can see portrait to landscape, fast on both of these units. No real delay there, again, because they're both operating the exact same processor, and in a lot of ways they're very similar in terms of specifications. So 16 gigabytes of internal storage on both of these devices, so keep that in mind as well. Although on the Lumia 822, as you can see back here, pop this off so you can take a look, you've got a micro SD card slot, so you can add a micro SD card and get some expandable storage if you need it, and you go past 16 gigabytes. So pop that back on, and then we'll start back where we left off with typing. Bam. Get all these little clasps all closed up and ready to go, and then we'll do the Quick Brown Fox. It's happy to be Fox is happy to be alive. He's a pretty optimistic person. And a couple things that bug me about Windows Phone 8. It's gotten better from previous versions. Still wish you could put that signal strength indicator and keep it up on the display, and I wish you had a physical battery percentage, but you've heard me say this a ton of times on both of these devices. But where I want to point out something else, the extended amount of customization that's available now in Windows Phone 8. Granted, it's still not as much as Android, and in some cases I'd argue it's still not as much as iOS, just because of how many applications are available for iOS, because of the things you can do with iOS. Even though it is a relatively closed ecosystem, I still find a little bit more customization in that area. Let's take a look down here. We'll go into, I can just hear the YouTube comments now. This guy doesn't know what he's talking about. iOS is terrible. iOS is pretty customizable in its own way. That said, the ecosystem is relatively closed. Let's go into theme first of all, and you can see this accent colors have changed. You can see a ton of different accent colors on both of these devices. I have it set to steel over here, but you can see a bunch of different alternatives. I can make Verizon red if I want to, and then I can come down here, and this is something I really like, the lock screen capabilities. We'll go down here. We'll do it on both devices so you can see the differences between lock screens. You can see background here. Choose background. I can do a photo or I can do Bing. So if I select Bing over here, turn it off and turn it back on, I'll show you. But the HTC one is one of my favorites, and obviously it's an HTC exclusive, which we'll take a look at in just a second. And then I can show artists. I can choose an app to show detailed status, and of course I can show quick status at the bottom. So I'll turn this one back off and back on so you can take a look, and you can see because I had my email selected as my status, that's what you're seeing a preview of in the notifications area down below, and you're also seeing the weather as a result of that HTC custom background. So you're seeing Dallas weather right now, and then you're seeing all these little shortcuts down at the bottom as well, along with one message and Outlook and a little bit more. Then over here I've got this, and I'll close that so you can see Bing. And then there's my Bing image of the day, and you can see again an Outlook message down there as well, and I can swipe up to get out of that and get back in to what matters to me. And obviously the tiles are customizable as well now. They're not custom, or they're not preset rather. You can change around the size if you want to. You can make them larger, smaller, move them around, make them their own. You can change messaging, and the bigger you make them, in some cases like messaging for example, you can see previews of things. So messaging, if you make it the full size, you can see previews of your text messages, which is really nice. It's something I've argued should be on these devices since the Windows Phone 7 days. Really nice to see it now in Windows Phone 8. Keep it locked in PhoneDog.com. Part 2 of this video is coming. We're going to talk about some more customizations, camera settings, applications, and more. So stay tuned.